The smoke hung in the room in layers of blue. From the front room, she heard the ticking intro of Countdown, that hypnotic metronome calling Britain's elderly to pick up their pens. Val sat in her armchair in front of the television, crossed her ankles and angled her knees to one side. She liked to sit like a lady. She scribbled capital letters onto her little pad, mouthed the beginnings of words, explored consonants on her tongue. Sometimes she got the conundrums even when the contestants didn't. You just had to keep staring at the letters along the bottom of the screen. When the programme had finished, she turned off the television. She sat in the quiet room, looking at the ornaments on the mantelpiece, the Portmeirion bud vase she'd brought back from her honeymoon in Wales, the copper box where she kept the matches for the gas fire, the perpetual desk calendar. Every day she turned the tiny wheel on the calendar so that the metal plates flipped over to show the right day, date and month. At either end of the fireplace stood her Staffordshire China dogs, a wedding present from Len's parents. She still remembered the excitement of when she'd taken them out of the box, the day Len carried her over the threshold. Such a grown-up thing to receive. She still dusted them every day and put them back on the same spot, positioning their haughty faces to look proudly over her front room. For a while she watched the torsion pendulum under the glass dome of the anniversary clock on the mantelpiece. Len had bought them the clock to mark their 5th anniversary. The 4 gold balls on the pendulum rotated left, rotated right, and then back again, smooth and precise, as if dancing a polite minuet. A single oscillation took exactly 8 seconds. Sometimes Val found herself spending full minutes contemplating the mechanism, spinning gently back and forth, back and forth. Elizabeth evenings usually made Val feel better. The silk lining of the fur coat gliding up her bare arms, a dainty puff of face powder, a sparkling fake rock on her finger. It calmed her. In the quiet of her terraced house and hidden away from the world, the burden of being Val was lifted, and for a time she could pretend she lived a more glamorous life, one that brimmed with diamonds and adventure in Bel Air, Los Angeles. The loss she still dragged around from day to day fell away, and for a few short hours she was able to forget. Dressed as Elizabeth, she could almost be happy. When Val woke in the morning, she found she'd been crying again. She took a tissue from the quilted box on the bedside table and wiped her eyes. 5 decades since she'd lost Duncan and Len, yet still she dreamed about them. The dreams were a brief, blissful return to those happy days with her husband and son, until she was confronted on waking by the terrible reality yet again. Strange how she still felt the shock of it. How could it be possible still to be in the grip of grief all these years later? They say sorrow eases with time, but Val felt it got harder. Every year that passed pulled her further away from the 2 people she'd loved more than all the world. She was due at the hairdresser at 10. Although she kept her more elaborate clothes and makeup for the evenings, she still enjoyed putting on a bit of glamour. Having her hair done was an occasion, and she clipped some sparklies onto her earlobes and put on her favourite dress. It was dusky mauve, with fabric buttons down the front and a matching belt which threaded through a loop on either side of the waist. The petticoats underneath gave the skirt a fullness, which made it float as she walked. Val pulled her raincoat over the dress, closed her front door, and stepped out onto the pavement. The sky was charcoal grey, and a light rain was falling steadily. Val tilted her umbrella in the direction of the wind as she walked towards the main road. She and Len had bought the house on Palmer Street just before they were married. It was halfway along a Victorian terrace, 3 streets back from the seafront. 2 symmetrical rows of houses on either side of the street converged at a point at the end, like the orthogonal lines on a perspective drawing. There were no bay windows or front gardens. The windows ran flush against the front wall, and the doors gave straight out onto the pavement. Val always thought this made the street look tidy. She'd been proud to live in Palmer Street when they'd first moved in, but the area had changed since those early days. Now it was rather down at heel.